Long ago, in a beautiful kingdom by the sea, there lived a young prince named Stephen. He was a kind and curious young man with bright blue eyes and a warm smile. Stephen loved his kingdom with its green forests, rich farmlands, and long, sandy beaches. But most of all, he loved the sea. Every day, after finishing his princely duties, Stephen would walk along the beach. He loved to feel the sand between his toes and watch the waves crash on the shore. Sometimes, he would sit on a big rock and dream about adventures in far-off lands. One evening, as the sun was setting and painting the sky orange and pink, Stephen saw something strange. Far down the beach, there was a figure sitting on a rock. Curious, he walked closer. As he got nearer, he saw it was a young woman with long, flowing hair. She was the most beautiful girl Stephen had ever seen. "Hello," Stephen called out, his heart beating fast. "I've never seen you here before. What's your name?" The girl turned to look at him. For a moment, she looked scared, like she might run away. But then she smiled, and her smile was as bright as the sun. "My name is Marina," she said in a soft, sweet voice. "And you must be Prince Stephen. I've heard about you." Stephen was surprised. "You know who I am? But I've never seen you before. Where are you from?" Marina looked out at the sea. "I'm from far away. I love to travel and see new places." Stephen's eyes lit up. "That sounds exciting. I've always wanted to travel, but I have to stay here because I'm a prince. Can you tell me about your adventures?" And so began a friendship that would change both their lives forever. Every evening, Stephen would rush to the beach to meet Marina. She told him amazing stories about distant lands and strange creatures. Stephen loved listening to her talk. Her laugh was like music, and her eyes seemed to hold all the secrets of the sea. As days turned into weeks, Stephen found himself falling in love with Marina. He thought about her all the time. He couldn't wait to see her each day. But there was something strange about Marina. She would never leave the water's edge, and she always disappeared into the sea when night came. One day, Stephen couldn't hold back his questions anymore. "Marina," he asked, "why do you always stay by the water? And where do you go at night?" Marina's smile faded, and she looked sad. "Stephen," she said softly, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you from the start." Stephen's heart beat faster. What could it be? Was Marina already married? Was she going to leave forever? Marina took a deep breath. "I'm not like you, Stephen. I'm a mermaid." Stephen stared at her, not sure if he heard right. "A mermaid? But that's impossible. Is it?" Marina asked. She slid off the rock into the shallow water. Where her legs should have been, Stephen saw a beautiful, shimmering tail. Stephen gasped and stepped back. His mind was spinning. Mermaids were real? And he had fallen in love with one? "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," Marina said, her eyes filling with tears. "I was afraid you'd hate me if you knew the truth. But I can't hide it anymore. I love you, Stephen." Stephen's shock slowly turned to wonder. He looked at Marina, really looked at her, and realized that it didn't matter if she had legs or a tail. She was still the same person he had fallen in love with. "Marina," he said, stepping closer to her. "I love you too. It doesn't matter to me if you're a mermaid or a human. You're the most amazing person I've ever met." Marina's face lit up with joy, and she reached out to take Stephen's hand. As their fingers touched, Stephen knew that his life would never be the same. From that day on, their love only grew stronger. Stephen spent every free moment with Marina, learning about her world under the waves. She told him about the great underwater cities of the Mer people, about their magic and their way of life. In return, Stephen taught Marina about life on land, about the kingdom he would one day rule. They were so happy together that they forgot to be careful. They didn't notice that someone was watching them. One day, as they sat together on the beach, lost in conversation, they didn't see the figure on the cliffs above. It was King Richard, Stephen's father. The king had wondered where his son had been going every day, and now he had his answer. But what he saw filled him with fear and anger. The next day, when Stephen went to the beach, he found his father waiting for him instead of Marina. "Father?" Stephen said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" King Richard's face was angry. "I think the better question is, what are you doing here, Stephen? And with that creature?" Stephen's heart sank. "You saw us?" "Yes, I saw you," the king said in a cold voice. "I saw you with a monster, a demon of the sea. Have you lost your mind?" "She's not a monster, father," Stephen shouted. "Her name is Marina, and I love her." The king's face turned red with anger. "Love her? She's not even human. She's a mermaid, a soulless creature that tricks men and leads them to their death. I forbid you from ever seeing her again." "You can't do that," Stephen cried. "I'm not a child anymore. I can make my own choices. As long as you're the prince of this kingdom, you will obey me," the king roared. "I will not let my son, the future king, throw away his life for some fish woman." They argued for a long time, neither willing to give up. Finally, the king made a terrible threat. "If you keep seeing this mermaid, I will have no choice but to disown you. You will no longer be the prince, no longer my son. Is that what you want?" Stephen was shocked into silence. Could his father really do that? Would he really choose his hate over his own son? I need time to think," Stephen said finally. "Take all the time you need," the king said. "But know this, if I ever see that mermaid near our shores again, I will order her captured and killed. Do you understand?" Stephen nodded, feeling numb. His whole world was falling apart. How could he choose between the woman he loved and his duty to his kingdom? That night, Stephen couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned in his bed, thinking about Marina and his father's words. He knew he had to warn Marina, to tell her to stay away to keep her safe. But the thought of never seeing her again broke his heart. As the sun came up, Stephen made his decision. He would tell Marina everything and let her decide what to do. He owed her that much. When he got to the beach, Marina was already there. Her face lit up when she saw him, but her smile faded when she saw how sad he looked. "Stephen, what's wrong?" she asked, reaching out to touch his hand. Stephen took a deep breath and told her everything, how his father had seen them, what he had said, and the threat to her life. Marina listened quietly, her face growing paler with each word. When Stephen finished, Marina was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I understand. You have to choose your kingdom over me. I always knew this day might come." "No," Stephen said fiercely. "I choose you, Marina. I'll give up my crown, my kingdom, everything. We can run away together, find a place where we can be happy." Marina's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Stephen. I love you for saying that. But we both know you can't leave your people. They need you." "I need you," Stephen said, his voice breaking. Marina smiled sadly. And I need you to be the great king I know you can be. A king who can change things, who can teach people to accept those who are different." Stephen knew she was right, but it didn't make the pain any less. "So this is goodbye?" he asked, his heart breaking. Marina nodded, tears running down her face. "For now. But not forever. I believe in you, Stephen. I believe in us. One day, we'll be together again." They held each other tightly, neither wanting to let go. But finally, as the sun rose higher in the sky, Marina pulled away. "I love you, Stephen," she said. "Never forget that." "I love you too, Marina," Stephen replied. "Always." With one last look, Marina slipped into the waves and disappeared under the water. Stephen stood on the shore long after she was gone, his heart heavy with loss and longing. In the days and weeks that followed, Stephen threw himself into his duties as prince. He studied harder than ever, determined to become the kind of king who could change minds and hearts. But he never forgot Marina, and he never gave up hope that one day they would be together again. As time passed, Stephen grew from a young prince into a wise and fair king. He worked hard to make his kingdom a place where everyone was accepted, no matter how different they might be. He never married, for his heart belonged to Marina alone. And every evening, as the sun set over the sea, King Stephen would walk along the beach. He would sit on the same rock where he first met Marina, and he would watch the waves, hoping that one day, his mermaid love would return to him. Little did Stephen know that far beneath the waves, Marina was keeping a secret that would one day bring them back together and change their kingdom forever. As the years passed, King Stephen ruled his kingdom with wisdom and compassion. The people loved him, but whispers spread about their king's solitude. Why did he never marry? Why did he spend so much time staring at the sea? Little did they know that beneath the waves, a whole different world was in turmoil. Marina, her heart heavy with loss, returned to her underwater kingdom. But she carried a secret, a miracle born from her love with Stephen. She was with child. In the grand coral palace, Marina revealed her condition to her father, the Sea King. His Triton crackled with energy, his face a storm of emotions. "A half-human child," he boomed, his voice echoing through the halls. "This is unprecedented." Marina stood her ground, her hand protectively over her belly. "This child is a bridge between our worlds, father. A symbol of hope." The Sea King's anger slowly ebbed, replaced by curiosity. "Perhaps," he mused, stroking his long, silver beard. "Perhaps this is the change our kingdoms need." Months passed, and Marina gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. They named her Pearl, for she was as precious as the rarest jewel of the sea. Pearl had Stephen's bright blue eyes and Marina's shimmering tail. As Pearl grew, so did her curiosity about the world above. "Mama," she would ask, her eyes wide with wonder, "tell me again about Papa and his kingdom on land." Marina's heart ached with every story, every memory shared. She knew the time was coming when she must return to the surface. 10 years had passed since Stephen and Marina parted. King Stephen sat on his throne, listening to his advisors debate a new trade agreement. Suddenly, the doors burst open. A guard rushed in, out of breath. "Your Majesty," he gasped. "At the beach, you must come see." Stephen's heart raced. Could it be? He rushed to the shore, his royal robes billowing behind him. There, on their old meeting spot, sat Marina. But she wasn't alone. Beside her was a young girl, unmistakably their daughter. Stephen fell to his knees in the sand, tears streaming down his face. "Marina?" Is it really you? Marina smiled, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Hello, Stephen. There's someone I'd like you to meet. The young girl swam forward, her tail glittering in the sunlight. Hello, Papa, she said shyly. I'm Pearl. Stephen's breath caught in his throat. He reached out a trembling hand to touch Pearl's cheek. Hello, Pearl, he whispered. I'm so happy to meet you. As the family reunited, a crowd gathered on the beach. Whispers turned to murmurs, murmurs to shouts. The king's wife is a mermaid. Look at the child, half human, half fish. Stephen stood, facing his people. This was the moment that would define his reign. My people, he began, his voice strong and clear. I know this may seem strange to you. But love knows no boundaries, not of land or sea. He gestured to Marina and Pearl. This is my family. And they are a bridge between our worlds. We have so much to learn from each other. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then, from the back, a small voice piped up. It was a little girl, pointing at Pearl with wonder in her eyes. She's beautiful, she exclaimed. Slowly, the tension broke. People began to smile, to whisper excitedly. The tide of opinion was turning. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. Marina and Pearl split their time between land and sea, teaching and learning. Pearl became a sensation, loved by humans and merfolk alike. She had inherited her father's charm and her mother's grace. Stephen worked tirelessly to change laws, to create a kingdom where all were welcome. It wasn't always easy. There were those who resisted, who clung to old prejudices. But with every passing day, more hearts and minds were opened. Marina used her knowledge of the sea to help the kingdom's fishing industry thrive while protecting the ocean's delicate balance. Pearl became a bridge between two worlds, organizing cultural exchanges that benefited both land and sea. Love and acceptance can bridge even the widest divides. This story teaches us that differences, no matter how great, can be overcome with understanding, compassion, and an open mind. It shows that when we embrace diversity and challenge our preconceptions, we can create a more inclusive and harmonious world for all. The tale reminds us that true leadership involves not just ruling, but also bringing people together and fostering unity among diverse groups. Please subscribe to my channel for more interesting stories.